Well, I didn't think that through very well, did I? Hello again and welcome back to my channel. Now, if you are a regular viewer on this channel, you will know that I have a little bit of affiliation with the wildlife and you will frequently see these little guys featured in my videos. Now, today's build stems from my recent shed build in which I put up an EPDM roof, and then I also put some guttering on the back. Now, the guttering was actually just little clip things. I'll leave a link in the description actually if you want to have a look at it, because you didn't have to screw anything on. It was dead easy to fit. And obviously with the guttering in place, I thought it'd be appropriate to get a water butt, just because it's been quite a nice spring and summer so far. So I got myself a water butt all set up. Bought myself one of these stands, which are pretty rubbish, to be honest. So it was kind of on, I put a little thing underneath it, and which was a disaster. But if it's not on a really flat piece of land, then they're not the best, to be honest. So I decided, well, I'll build myself my own water butt stand, which leaves quite a bit of a gap underneath, thinking, how could that gap be filled? Hence the Hedgehog house. So I don't think I've seen a YouTube video on someone building a water butt stand that also doubles up as a Hedgehog house. In regards to the hedgehogs, again, without me going all Attenborough on you, since 2000 the hedgehog population in the UK has declined by 50%, and they believe that within 20 years we will no longer have hedgehogs in the UK, which is a bit of an I'm not too happy about that, to be honest. However, one possible positive thing of the last few months of just being so fewer cars on the road and so much human movement, if you like, there is a potential resurgence for some wildlife breeds. So maybe the hedgehog is going to make a bit of a comeback, and I'm determined in our back garden to make it as comfortable for them as possible. So raiding your scrap wood pile is a great project for this. Now, what I've been using in this project, I had some treated 3x2 left over from the shed build, and I've ripped it down the middle for the actual support for the actual frame. Now, it's a modular design again. I've got plenty of modular designs on my channel because this needs to be quite sturdy. Obviously, when the water butt gets full, there's a significant amount of weight in it. So in the frame, it needs to be quite sturdy to take a lot of weight. So I'm using some treated wood, 3x2 ripped down the middle. I have some decking board left over. I've done a massive cut list for Pam's dad for his planters project. So I had a few nice little choice offcuts left. So that's going to come in really handy. I also have some good chunks, some good pieces of OSB left, which forms the inner part of the modular design. And also, I haven't got any with me here, I've got a few offcuts of feather boards as well, which clad it on the outside. Now, I hope you enjoy this build. It's something quite bespoke, something you're not going to see very often. It's quite a niche market, I think, but maybe something you might want to consider doing yourselves. Just before we cut to the build, on a personal note, I've had quite a few messages recently just asking about my own personal condition in regards to my arm, my hand and nerve damage, etc. And the channel's grown quite substantially recently. I'm over 2,200 subscribers now, which is hello to all new subscribers and welcome to the channel. And it's incredible the level of support and real goodwill and nice messages and stuff out there. Now, I kind of purposely don't talk a little bit about my condition. It's I don't know if oxymoron's the word really, but it's one of those that the channel is all about this, but I don't want it to be about that at all. So what I've decided is I've had some just some people asking them for updates and stuff, asking how I'm getting on. I'm not going to feature these very often in videos, but what I've decided at the end of this video is I'm going to do a little after the build's finished, just to give you a little bit of an update where I'm at. Because if you've watched the build, close it off, fine, that's great. If you want to know a little bit more about my own physical updates, so which has been some good news, been some bad news, and also would appreciate maybe a little bit of advice. There's a few folk out there who may be able to help me with some guidance that I've been given from the medical profession recently. Anyway, take care everyone. Thanks very much for tuning in. Thanks to all you new subscribers. Look after yourselves and I'll see you soon. Thank you. Obviously, if you're going to build your own water butt stand, it needs to be bespoke to your own requirements. Now, I knew mine needed to be 50 centimetres tall, so just for ease, I decided to make it 50 centimetres deep as well, and the total width of it is going to be approximately 65 to 70 centimetres once the side panels are added. So I set the stop block on my KAPEX side extensions, and then just took a load of the treated 3x2 CLS and cut it at 50 centimetre lengths. I then used my calipers to get a real accurate measurement of how thick the CLS was, and it came out at just over 72 millimeters. So I then set the fence on my table saw to just below 35 mil to cut it so I could rip it down the middle, and hopefully that would give me 2 even pieces. Alright, we're just getting ready to assemble the little modules that will form the side panels and the base. Now, the overall height I want it to be is 50 centimetres, and all of these pieces that I've ripped on the table saw are all 50 centimetres. Now, the side frames are going to have to be trimmed down in order to meet the overall height. So what we need to do is figure out how much we've got to trim these down. So the base is going to be some 2x2 with some 11 mil OSB. Then we will have the bottom of the panel, and we will have the top of the framed panel, which will also have some OSB. And then at the very top I've got some offcuts of some decking, so we need to get the approximate height of that. Which is about 18 centimeters. So we need to trim the sides of these by 18 centimeters to get our overall height of 50 centimeters. I think that makes sense. Well, let's find out. The next stage is to cut the OSB side frames to size. Now what I'm doing is just with the actual timber I've cut the CLS, I'm making a mock-up of what the side panels is going to look like, and then I'm just going to draw a line around the outside using a Sharpie. Other manufacturers of marker pen are also available. Just a quick tip when you're marking OSB boards, don't use a black marker pen, because when you go back you will find that there are several dots that look identical to the one you just made. So I used the blue marker pen, and then I took my track saw just to cut all the lengths of the OSB board to size. And then we're moving on to actually assembling the panels together. Now here I'm using Type Bond 3, which has a waterproof property because this is obviously going to be living outdoors. And then the way I do it is I actually take 3 of the pieces of the CLS timber and put them together before lowering the OSB board on top of it. Just making sure that's in place correctly before taking my trusty kettlebell to add a little bit of weight to it before adding some fixings to secure everything together. And then once 3 of the 4 sides are attached, it's simply a case of manoeuvring the 4th piece, getting that secured and in place again with the kettlebell, and then adding some more fixings before taking a damp cloth and wiping off all the excess glue. All right. How's the Hedgehog gonna get in? Oh dear. The next stage was to assemble the base, which is the exact same principle as doing the sidewalls. This time I was just using some off-cutter treated 2x2. Unfortunately, I didn't have a single piece of OSB that was big enough, as I was just using scraps, but I managed to find 2 pieces that fitted it fine. The actual base itself is 10 centimeters longer than the side frame, which came in at just on about 75 centimeters. That will give me a little lip either side for when I add the featherboard cladding later on. Ah yes, when building a hedgehog home, you need to make it cat-proof, as they can try and reach in and attack the hedgehogs. It's quite straightforward. It just needs a piece of timber on the inside, which will put an inquisitive cat off from possibly venturing in there. So all I did with this, I had a little offcut of decking board. Now I used some CA glue with the activator to secure it down in place. And then I can drive a fixing through on the other side to make it all nice and secure. 2 things before the final assembly. Firstly, I need to make sure all the timbers in the side frames are attached via fixings, and then a little light sanding just to make sure there's no splinters, particularly around the area where I've drilled the fixings in. Apologies for this horrific camera angle, but if you just want to make it slightly more cat-proof than what it already is, then if you put a piece of board across the timber insert on the inside, just gives it that little bit more security. Now, in terms of actually cladding, again, I cut them all to length using the stop block on my KAPEX extender. I won't talk too much about this because I've got a video of it and a little pop-up in the right-hand corner on my one-handed woodworking tips on how to fit featherboards. Now onto the spraying. Obviously you could just do this with a paintbrush if you wanted to, but I have a Wagner W100 spray gun. Now I've got a video coming out on this in a few weeks time because I've had this now just on a year and I've used it in a variety of projects using a variety of different finishes. Now I'm actually here using Tudor back Ronseal 4-coat, I think it's called actually. So in between coats I decided to make the lid for the hedgehog house, which the waterbutt stand is going to rest on. So obviously it needs to be quite sturdy. Now I'm using here some of the offcuts I had from the decking boards. Now again, I didn't have a piece of OSB big enough, so I got 3 scraps together and I managed to find some aluminium foil, which I've sealed up the gaps there. And then over the top, I'm going to be applying the decking boards, use a combination of glue and little fixings. And as I made the actual lid to have a slight overhang so it doesn't get as much water going down on the cladding, I'm just going to measure up here just to make sure it's equal length around the outsides. I was going for kind of a 5 centimetre overhang. And after the additions to secure the lid in place and the water butt in place as well, I decided to paint it with the same Tudor black oak. Unfortunately, the finish with the paintbrush in relation to the spray finish was pretty rubbish, to be honest, so I decided to get the spray gun back out and give the decking boards there a couple of extra coats just to make it look nice and uniform towards the end. Then it was pretty much a case of just getting it where we wanted it to be in the garden. It was extremely heavy by this point, so Pam had to give me a hand to place the base in place, and then I managed to get the lid on top okay before securing the water butt where I needed it to be. And that's pretty much it, folks. I do hope you've enjoyed this build video, something quite unique and maybe something you've not seen before. Now, if you did enjoy this, then please maybe give it a like and even maybe consider subscribing to the channel. Take care, everyone. Look after yourselves, and I'll see you soon. Thanks very much. Well, if you've stayed on till this part of the video, then maybe it's not just learning about how to make a Hedgehog house water butt stand that you've tuned into this video for, and thank you very much. I thought I'd do a little bit of an update, guys, because it's been just over 2 years now. 5th of May 2018, a date etched in my mind and will be for the rest of my life when things changed forever. So it's been a little bit of a rough road, okay, I'm not going to deny it, okay. And so I've talked with a few guys on here in relation to the actual type of injury. Now, if you do know, in relation to nerve problems, mine's a brachial plexus injury. Now, I have had some chats in the comments section and via emails with some subscribers as well who've suffered brachial plexus injuries, and they are notoriously complicated and not the best in terms of recovery and rehab sometimes, but things have been getting a little bit better, okay. I was getting quite intensive physiotherapy. I've been also getting acupuncture. I have a lot of trouble with my back because of dead weight in my arm, so I was seeing an osteopath for that, and things were going okay after having no movement or feeling in my arm for well over a year. There were 1 or 2 little green shoots, which was fantastic. I started to regain a little bit of feeling in my arm, which was good. I can now say that's probably about maybe 20-30% return, so I can distinguish between hot and cold when I burn myself or when it's freezing cold. And what else? So yeah, and then really there has been a little bit of development in my hand. I now have some minute movements in my middle to little finger, and I've now managed to re-establish a tiny amount of pinch in my thumb to index finger. I say really I can distinguish it by saying if I can put a piece of paper between them now, I can kind of offer a minor amount of resistance. So although that's only tiny, that is massive, okay. It's a really big improvement. Things have plateaued though towards the end of last year into the new year. Things just for some reason the development, the progress wasn't there. and then the COVID situation kicked in, so unfortunately all of the treatments I was receiving, so the acupuncture, the physiotherapy, the osteopath, have all stopped. Now it's just been a bit of a big issue, to be honest, because anyone who has a nerve condition or suffers with nerve pain, or we call it chronic pain, will know exactly what I'm on about. It's, you know, extremely painful. There's no other way of getting around it. Medication at best can take the edge off it, for the type that I take, and I'm choosing not to go down the opioids route because I don't want to be turned into a zombie, to be honest with you, and that's the brutal reality of some of those drugs. So the actual things like the physiotherapy and the acupuncture was kind of like supporting, because they kind of patched me up to send me out for the week, and then you know, and I did get some relief from it. So not actually being able to experience that for the last 3 months has led to a significant increase in pain, unfortunately. And then, as the counsellors might refer to it, as the well of despair, because pain causes a lack of rest. Lack of rest causes a more fragile mental state, shall we say. So it's a difficult time, and it's just one that I'm just going to have to continue to work through, and hopefully we might see some improvements with that again. Hopefully the treatments might be up and running again soon, and that might lead to some kind of improvements all round. The final part of this video is just to ask for anybody out there. Just before, I say, the COVID thing kicked in, I saw a consultant neurologist in February, and his recommendation was for them to go down the route of an implant in my spinal cord. It's something called a spinal cord stimulator, which apparently regulates the neural pathways and can be extremely beneficial to people suffering chronic pain or nerve pain, and as a result of less pain I should say, could promote a better rehabilitation and recovery. Now, I've done a lot of reading on spinal cord stimulators, and I'm a little bit still in the dark about them. I'm just wondering if there's anybody out there who has either had this implant done or knows of someone who has, because I'd love to get in touch. You know, my contact details, you know, email, the social media stuff is in the description, just to have a little bit of a chat, really, to relate your experiences to it, because there's a couple of things about them if you don't know anything about them, because I certainly didn't. Once it's in, if they do go with it, it's in for life. It cannot be taken out. Also, the success rate, from what I've been reading, is possibly 2 in 3. Okay, because they can fail, and if they do fail, it can lead to a substantial increase in pain. Now, that's something I'm not willing to take at the moment, because I don't think I'd be able to take much more than what I'm currently being able to manage. So there's a huge, what we might call, risk-reward situation. Okay, the high risk goes, actually, you know, at the end of the day, they're messing with your spinal cord. And I'm completely unsure. I will be going in to see him within the next few months, and you know, I change my mind 50 times a day about something like this, but I do have a page of questions for the consultant when I do see him, to gain a little bit more information and to make a bit more of an informed choice about it. So yeah, I'm just wondering if there's anybody out there who has any knowledge of it or has experienced anything to do with spinal cord stimulators. I would be grateful if you could get in touch, and maybe we could have a little chat about it. Okay guys, just thanks again for tuning in. I've really enjoyed all your input in all of my videos, and it's great to see new subscribers joining the channel and stuff. Take care, please look after yourselves, and hopefully I'll see you soon. Thanks very much.